Let me start off by saying that this is an extremely serious situation involving RyudieDragon/Yuji, and I never wanted to make this video. I never thought I would even have to do something like this. But after finding out about what happened recently, and things which have occurred in the past which this sick individual still continues to do to this day, I will not stay silent about this anymore. I'll try to keep things short and simple and straight to the point, but if anyone wants to know things more in depth or have any questions whatsoever, my Discord is Koru_the_room. I also need to make it clear that this situation goes beyond simple relationship drama. RyudieDragon is a danger to the entire Geometry Dash community and every other community. This video will be talking about this horrible individual who preys on minors, manipulates people into doing sexual acts, abuses the people he is in relationships with, and so much more. I am making this video to not only tell my story and the abuse I've had to endure, but also to voice the victims who have come forward and told me their stories as well. This video should be taken extremely seriously and should be spread around to protect the people within this community from RyudieDragon and his illegal actions. I have talked to many people who were involved with this sick human being, and the more people I talk to, the more I realize how messed up he truly is. But to start off, the thing that led to this situation is that RyudieDragon, someone who has already had much drama about him in the past, on the 6th of February, not only attempted to cheat on me, but at the same time he also groomed one of my friends who is a minor. According to this victim, he talked with RyudieDragon for a little while in Discord DMs after he noticed that Ryu made a tweet saying that he was stressed out. The victim provides a screenshot which shows that Ryu shared a cropped not safe for work image for quite literally no reason, which is an extremely weird thing to send to someone who he had just started to interact with. Within 2 hours of them talking, he made a group chat with literally just the two of them out of nowhere and started to ask very lewd and personal questions to the victim. He started off the conversation by saying, "You a bottom, right?" And then it descends into a disgusting mess. The victim responded to stuff but got increasingly uncomfortable as it went on. But then RyudieDragon saying, "How about cock?" made him stop replying. This behavior is absolutely disgusting and something which a 20-year-old adult man should never say to a minor under any circumstances. The thing that I find the most disturbing and upsetting about this situation is that this is extremely similar to how RyudieDragon interacted with me when we first met. This similarity shows a disturbing pattern in his behavior towards other people. Moving on from this, I would like to bring up some things which have happened in the past involving RyudieDragon. I know that some people may view these actions as irrelevant due to the fact that these situations happened years ago, but it's important that I bring these up regardless to prove the fact that he's the same person he has always been and has not changed whatsoever, and continues to do these horrible things to this day. Irrelevant or not, these actions are still horrible and criminal, so it's important that I bring these to light. The victim who made these claims told me to include the fact that at the time of writing what happened to him, he was 15, but he was only 14 years old for a large portion of their relationship when he had to deal with these vile acts. With that being said, I'm now going to talk about some things which have happened to a victim of his who wishes to remain anonymous. According to this victim, he states that RyudieDragon used suicide as a method of manipulation to make the victim feel bad for things that he had no right to get mad about. He also compared himself to a case of suicide in the GD community to make the victim feel bad about things that were never done to hurt him. Specifically, he tried manipulating the victim by threatening that he will be like Skye/Leo. He cheated on the victim and had seemingly no remorse for it. He defended actual in real life child pornography as an adult. He enabled pedophiles to roam in his personal servers, endorsing them and treating them as if they had done nothing wrong. For example, Selling, who is a pedophile in the community, known for sending furry shotacon to 13-year-olds, as well as his own bulge pics while being 19, and being overall very creepy, publicly sexual, and publicly inviting, especially towards minors. According to the victim in this situation, RyudieDragon did all of these vile acts within a single year. I will now go into more depth about each one of these claims and provide evidence for each one of these disgusting acts. Evidence for the first act, which is the fact that he used suicide as a method of manipulation to make the victim feel bad for things he had no right to get mad about, can be proven by these screenshots, which I will now show you. According to the victim, suicide threats and manipulation are things that he's always used. He then proceeded to share a few examples of the shit he's done regarding this, including the Skye situation, which is currently being shown. I'm sure some of you are aware of it already, but for those who are not aware, sadly a community member of ours named Skye passed away due to suicide. The victim states that the context for these images are that he had gotten a boyfriend in real life, rather than going back to Ryu and avoiding everyone else for another 3 years. Even after they broke up and RyudieDragon knew that the victim disliked him, he was convinced that the victim would go back and live with him, so that he had his perfect sex lifestyle, which was grooming. The victim then shares that Ryu got pissed at him for loving someone better, and then he decided to use suicide as a method of making the victim feel bad for it, which genuinely put a horrible toll on him as the Skye situation hurt the victim a lot. I have had suicidal thoughts for the majority of my life, and it is absolutely horrible and mentally exhausting to deal with. So this situation really upsets me deeply as well, and I know that it has upset many other people as well. It's already disgusting enough using something as horrible and sad as suicide as a form of manipulation, but comparing yourself to someone who has legitimately committed suicide as a form of manipulating someone is a whole different level of inhumanity. The second disgusting act is cheating on the victim during their relationship and seemingly having no remorse for it. The victim states that this isn't nearly as bad as a lot of the other actions he's committed. However, it's still important because it helps show that he is a pathological liar, given everything else he's done. The victim then proceeded to share these screenshots showing evidence of cheating and RyudieDragon's horrible response. The first 2 screenshots show the anonymous person who RyudieDragon was cheating on the victim with admitting that the 2 of them were talking sexually and that he was being cheated on. And the third image shows RyudieDragon's horrible response stating that he quote-unquote can't control himself sometimes. I will now provide evidence for the third vile act, which is the fact that RyudieDragon defends the consumption of child pornography. These screenshots prove that this isn't just some fiction versus reality shit. He tried to defend real, in real life child porn, which is illegal literally everywhere, especially where Ryu and the victim lives. The victim states that this is some weird bullshit about RyudieDragon encouraging the victim to view child porn, like he does, despite the victim not wanting to do so. RyudieDragon kept promoting his opinion on how it's quote-unquote okay to view child porn if you are a minor, which is not true. It is still very much illegal, and this was after the victim had broken up with him. The fourth horrible and dangerous act which RyudieDragon committed is that he let pedophiles, knowingly, into his servers which had many minors in them. The victim provided evidence for this claim by stating and providing screenshots of RyudieDragon inviting Biselling/Val, who was a creator and community member known for intentionally sending furry shotacon and bulge pics to 13-year-olds while knowing their age. The reason the victim knew Ryu was aware of what he did is the fact that he commented on the exposal and said that he was disappointed, which the victim took a screenshot of, which I will now show you. And now here are the screenshots with the evidence of RyudieDragon supporting Biselling and inviting this pedophile into a server, which the victim provided. The victim states that these screenshots are confirmation from 2 server members proving that he was invited. Please note that the server was not open for people to join. RyudieDragon had to privately invite them. The fact that Ryu said he knew Biselling and used to talk with them, acknowledged that they were a pedophile, and invited them again is disgusting and extremely dangerous. For the final disgusting act which the victim shared, it has to do with the fact that RyudieDragon is extremely creepy towards people, publicly, and especially towards minors. The victim states that this one isn't much of a surprise because Ryu is extremely hypersexual towards everyone, and does not fail to make himself seem much worse towards the people who witness it. The victim then claimed that back in early 2021, RyudieDragon went into the DMs of a 14-year-old whose name I will keep anonymous and tried exchanging cock pics while knowing their age and while dating the victim. And then RyudieDragon actually said and claimed that, quote-unquote, the N-word is funny. Here are the screenshots which were provided for evidence. For this next victim, he saw my Twitter post and opened up to me about his story in my Discord DMs, which I will now share with you all. The victim starts off with a bit of context, stating that at the time when his story first began, he was severely depressed and had recently exited an IRL relationship with someone who he had trusted deeply. Because of that, he was emotionally damaged to an extent where he displayed behavior which wouldn't be a long shot to describe as similar to BPD. which is a mental illness that severely impacts a person's ability to manage their emotions. He had extreme trust issues and felt abandoned, but at the same time he couldn't stand being alone, so he would randomly have crushes on people who he couldn't do anything with, usually because of age gaps due to the fact that he was not even 15 at the time. This led the victim to two major situations which made it even worse, and one of them was becoming too attached to RyudieDragon. He states that he was not sure how it started, but he and Ryu somehow started getting close, and before he knew it, Ryu was buying shit for the victim, sleeping with him in voice chat, etc. The victim states that unfortunately, he was probably in love with Ryu, and kept dismissing all of the red flags he saw, such as all the serious drama Ryu had already been involved with at the time, and kept trying to pursue his attention. The victim then goes on to state that before he says anything else, that he makes it clear that they never had anything official, or shared pictures of themselves or anything along those lines. Also, this victim states that he knows that what he got himself into was pretty fucked up, and that he should have known better, but he can't just not blame RyudieDragon for anything that follows, because even though he basically served himself on a plate for a deranged person, and did some pretty reprehensible stuff, Ryu did influence the victim to keep going with it instead of making everything stop. RyudieDragon and the victim usually talked about openly sexual topics, either in the Not Safe for Work channels in his old server, or sharing art in DMs. They had no problem doing this. Keep in mind, Ryu was 17, almost 18 at the time, and he knew that the victim was only 14 years old. Around June 2022, Ryu and the victim started talking to each other in a flirty manner, never actually being direct or anything, but with romantic undertones. One time, RyudieDragon even told the victim he would quote-unquote make the victim his pet if he was the same age as him. I will now provide translated screenshots for evidence of this. The victim eventually confessed his feelings for RyudieDragon, to which Ryu replied that they couldn't have anything official since they had a big age gap. That didn't exactly mean jack shit though, because they would keep talking to each other in a romantic/borderline sexual way. RyudieDragon even told the victim I love you one time, and Ryu even said he quote-unquote wanted to do stuff to the victim. This was around the same time the victim was pressured by RyudieDragon to create a not safe for work drawing of his persona. The victim states that he highly regretted this decision. The victim then shared these screenshots for evidence, which I will now show. Even though RyudieDragon refused to make their little relationship official, he kept flirting and manipulating the victim just like he did to many other people to make him feel like he had a chance. Ryu kept telling the victim that he loved him, sending a fuck ton of heart emojis, roleplay, etc. Ryu even bought the victim Gunfire Reborn on Steam in order to play it with him. RyudieDragon kept telling the victim he wanted to do sexual stuff with the victim's dragon OC. He even sent the victim IRL fursuit porn videos, and said stuff like, what if we were dating? RyudieDragon did all of these things while knowing the victim was only 14 years old. Here are the screenshots for evidence. The victim then states that at some point in September/October 2022, they stopped talking in this flirty and romantic manner, mainly because the victim started officially dating someone else. The victim then states that the conclusion to all of this is that he was in love and a horny 14-year-old, and RyudieDragon didn't do anything to stop the victim from thinking Ryu wanted to be with him. Instead, Ryu chose to keep pushing it. That's this victim's story. As one final piece of irrefutable evidence, here is proof that RyudieDragon knew the victim's age, but despite the criminal age gap, he continued to flirt and send explicit videos, images, and talked sexually with the victim. This victim starts off by stating that he and RyudieDragon were friends for a very long time, and that Ryu probably thinks that they are still friends. The victim says they met around 7 years ago. He then says that at this time, most of their talks were about cute things, sometimes about geometry dash levels, and so on. The victim then claims that around 3 years ago, they both discovered that they have a fetish for inflatables, which the victim says caused them to talk much more often. The victim and RyudieDragon usually discussed a lot of things based around inflatables, such as inflatable toys, arts, photos, and videos. The victim then states that after a while, Ryu suggested that they should exchange IRL inflatable videos, as in erotic videos of RyudieDragon and the victim interacting with inflatables. This victim then goes on to state that he had, and basically has, a boyfriend, and RyudieDragon knew about this. The victim then claims that he never sent a single video to even his boyfriend. But that didn't stop RyudieDragon from asking the victim about these videos. The victim stayed calm about this, but felt very uncomfortable about the situation. This victim then goes on to tell me that one day he and Ryu were sending photos of inflatable art and inflatable toys as usual. But then as they were sending media, RyudieDragon started to tease the victim about his inflatable toy collection. Long story short, RyudieDragon made a false promise of sending the victim his dream inflatable, and in return, the victim made an art piece for Ryu. The victim states that the art piece alone was not enough for him. RyudieDragon definitely wanted to see more personal stuff from the victim. Due to the lies and manipulative behavior from Ryu, and the drama which was coming out about him, the victim distanced himself from RyudieDragon, and he states that they don't talk anymore. This situation, despite not being too serious, gives more evidence that RyudieDragon is a manipulator who lacks empathy and lies while using people to get what he wants. Here is a separate document with all of the screenshots for evidence. This next victim was in a relationship with RyudieDragon for a very long time, but ended up getting manipulated, hurt, and cheated on. The screenshots which the victim has shared with me I will now show. These screenshots show the evidence of RyudieDragon knowingly cheating on FrostDragon with an individual who wishes to remain anonymous. These next screenshots which the victim shared with me shows his response to the anonymous individual confronting him and admitting that he was being cheated on. FrostDragon states that he knew that RyudieDragon was up to something while they were dating due to the fact that Ryu sometimes did not respond to him when he said something. And when he asks why he would not respond, RyudieDragon always said that he was quote-unquote busy, which was suspicious. This is very similar to experiences I've had with him. Sometimes I would ask questions to try to have conversations with Ryu, but his responses would not make any sense, probably because he was too busy cheating on me and talking sexually with other people. This victim also wanted me to share this screenshot of him explaining the sacrifices he made for RyudieDragon, which were not appreciated or even acknowledged by him. FrostDragon also mentioned the fact that throughout their relationship, RyudieDragon never credited him for art pieces which he made for him, or parts which he created in Geometry Dash levels to help RyudieDragon. This is even more solid and irrefutable evidence that RyudieDragon is a compulsive liar who has no empathy for the people he is in relationships with, and is a manipulator who is not fit to be in any relationship whatsoever due to the fact that he is a lying cheater, and always has been. To finish off this horrible and disturbing exposal of this disgusting individual, I will now explain my story and the things RyudieDragon has done to me. To start off, me and RyudieDragon were together for about 2 years. I met Ryu about 2 years ago. After chatting with him for a bit whenever he joined my Twitch streams, which I did back then, and in the YouTube comment section of the videos which I uploaded at the time, he then invited me to one of his old servers. At first we just texted because at the time I didn't use a microphone because I did not have one. I remember the thing which really made us start to connect together was the fact that once I got a microphone, we always played together on his Minecraft Realm server, which he made at the time. He always commented on how much he enjoyed playing on his Minecraft Realm server with me, and he started flirting with me and occasionally doing things which made me think that he liked me, which unfortunately ended up being true. Up until this point, what he has done is flirt with a minor, which is already bad enough as it is, but that changes from here on out. These next parts are extremely graphic and highly disturbing for me, and probably for many other people as well. So just as a heads up, these next parts are highly graphic. Basically, after some time he asked me if I wanted to see his private parts. Me being the idiot that I was at the time, I did not know how to react, and while being under pressure and stress, I said yes. Knowing that this is a very bad thing that he asked, I immediately took a screenshot, which I will now show for evidence. Something to note about this is that I was not of legal age, and RyudieDragon knew this. Only 13 days before asking me this question, he asked how old I was, and I told him that I was 16 years old. I need to make it clear that RyudieDragon was of legal age, and once again requesting to share explicit images with a minor, which is highly illegal and disgusting. Here are the screenshots, which provide the date and what was said for proof. I know I never should have said yes to seeing those photos. I was a stupid kid dealing with a lot of issues, and he manipulated me into thinking that he cared about me. At this point in time, I had no friends, and I was just happy to see that someone seemed to care about me. I was not thinking about how horrible the things he was doing to me were, and I deeply regret not being able to realize what he was doing sooner. Friday, September 23rd, 2022 was the day that me and RyudieDragon officially became boyfriends. We made it clear that our relationship was a closed one and that there should not have been any sexual or not safe for work fetish talk with anyone. But clearly, RyudieDragon does not change. He has lied and has done sexual stuff behind his previous partners' backs, and unfortunately I was no different. This next section which I'm about to talk about was the first time RyudieDragon truly broke my heart and backstabbed me. Ever since this incident, everything started to go downhill for us. For context, me and RyudieDragon talked a lot about inflatables and inflation because it was a fetish which we shared at the time. I noticed that he would sometimes talk to people publicly about inflatables in servers of his which I was in at the time. This made me extremely uncomfortable because he talked about it sexually with random people. I need to make it absolutely clear that me and RyudieDragon agreed to not talk sexually and suggestively with other people before this happened. I put up with it for a while, but after some time I was not able to handle it anymore, so I confronted him about it. He promised me that he would not talk sexually to anyone about inflatables anymore, which obviously ended up being a lie. Not even a week after me catching him talking sexually with people, it turns out he started approaching the same people I told him not to talk to again and started talking to them about this fetish. Here are the screenshots for evidence. Even after all of this, and him promising me multiple times that he would stop, I found out recently while talking to victims of his and friends that he had, that even after this and during the peak of our relationship, he was still talking about this fetish to people behind my back. This is solid proof that RyudieDragon does not change and he will never be a trustworthy person. He cheated and lied to so many of his previous partners, and clearly he still does to this day. This next thing that he did to me is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen or had to deal with in my entire life. He threatened me and basically forced me to block my friends, who at the time did nothing wrong. He treated me like complete shit and mentally abused and manipulated me simply for being friends with people who had justified reasons for being upset with him. He continuously made me feel horrible for spending time with my friends whenever he was not even able to call because he was at work. But yet he was able to spend all the time in the world with his friends, and I never complained about it at the time. Here are the screenshots for proof. These screenshots are extremely solid evidence of how manipulative and abusive RyudieDragon is. He treated my friends, who I truly cared about, as if they were just objects, who I should be rude to and do unnecessary things to just for his selfish gain, to make him feel better about his miserable and sensitive self. I won't get into it because my friends who RyudieDragon was referring to in the screenshots wish to keep their reasons private, but let me make it abundantly clear that my friends had completely valid reasons for not liking RyudieDragon. The fact that he made something as small as my friends who were people who he never even talked to about my problem, instead of just acting like an adult and moving on, is extremely controlling and dangerous behavior. After this situation, we ended up getting into a massive fight, and I ended up making a 50-minute long video explaining how hurt I was in our relationship and how horribly RyudieDragon was abusing and treating me. I also called out the fact that he made a massive deal out of the situation and mistreated me and abused me because I called out that he should not have been talking with certain people, especially because he was already in a closed relationship with me. He left 10 comments on this video with timestamps to important points which I made. I thought that this meant that he was truly taking what I said seriously and was going to change. But obviously he did not change, and this was just another form of manipulation from him. RyudieDragon never changes. No matter how many times me and his previous partners have tried to help him become a better person, he just ends up rejecting the advice given to him and continues being a toxic and manipulative monster. For this next part, it's important that I explain how much I have sacrificed for RyudieDragon. I used to have an in real life friend group of around 15 people, and I loved every single one of those individuals. They were always there for me, and it was always such a fun time whenever I had classes with them or hung out with them during my lunch breaks. I got along with all of them really, really well, and we even added each other on Discord and played many different games together. This was before I knew who RyudieDragon was. Once me and Ryu made our relationship official, we added matching banners which I made for us on our Discord accounts. Long story short, my friends gave me the option to either break up with him because they thought that it was weird that I was in a long-distance relationship with a guy, or they would not be friends with me anymore. And without hesitation, I chose staying with RyudieDragon, because despite the things he had already done to me at the time, I still loved him. And I was fooled by his manipulation tactics, which made me feel trapped with him. I did not regret this decision at the time though, and I happily stayed with him. I even cared about him so much that I cut connections with a few online people if it made him feel better and there was a genuine good reason for me not to talk to them. I even sacrificed family time and spending time with my friends at parties which I will never be able to experience ever because of him. As the screenshots which I will soon show prove, he did not agree with this. He made our relationship completely unfair despite everything I had done for him. I wanted him to cut connections with a few people because I knew that he talked sexually to them before, even while I was with him. He agreed not to talk to these people for a while, but of course, him being the type of person he is, he ended up not being okay with this after a while. Despite the fact that he completely agreed to it, he complained about not being allowed to talk to people which he should not have been talking to in the first place. Despite all of the IRL friends I've lost and the online friends I've blocked, He wasn't able to stop talking to one specific group of people which he never should have been involved with in the first place, and some friends of his who are horrible people. Here are the screenshots for proof. This next part is something that I am not proud of, but something that I need to address because it's been brought to my attention that RyudieDragon is using this against me. After we were together for almost a year, I met someone named FrostDragonGD, who was a victim of RyudieDragon's abuse, and we really cared about each other. We were just friends at first, but once we started to get to know each other better and better, and realized how much we had in common, and especially after we shared our stories of the horrible things RyudieDragon had done to each of us, we ended up catching feelings for each other. I need to make it extremely clear that there were no IRL photos shared or anything like that. I know that I should not have continued to flirt with FrostDragon, but I really loved him. For the first time in over a year, I finally felt like someone actually cared about me again. I was just so desperate to feel that love that RyudieDragon gave to me at the start of a relationship that I was not thinking about the repercussions. I was just filled with happiness for the first time in a long time after being abused and manipulated by RyudieDragon. I know that this was not a good thing for me to do, but I was so desperate to feel loved again, and I felt so trapped in the relationship that I was in, so me and FrostDragon just kept it a secret and lifted each other up whenever we were feeling down. At this point in time, I realized that I wanted to find a way to escape my relationship with RyudieDragon, but after all the manipulation he had done to me and the things he said he would do if I left him, I felt completely trapped and scared. Long story short, Ryu ended up finding out about me and FrostDragon and was not too upset about it. However, I had to make a choice, and considering everything Ryu had said to me to make me stay with him, I made the worst mistake of my entire life. I stayed with RyudieDragon. Everything went downhill even faster than before after this, and I fell right back into the depressed and vulnerable state that I was in. During this time, RyudieDragon did many things which hurt me, which I will now talk about. One of the things which hurt me the most was the fact that he absolutely hated my art. At this point, I was extremely depressed, so I used art to try to distract myself and make pieces which I was proud of. But Ryu made fun of and complained about every single one of my art pieces. The only time he didn't complain is if he was in the art pieces I made, but whenever it was just my character, he always found ways to bring me down and demotivate me. Here are a few screenshots for proof. Another thing he did relating to that, which really hurt my feelings and felt like he was completely messing with my emotions, was that he actually ended up retweeting one of my art pieces and telling me about it, which made me really happy, because other than art pieces I made with either him or both of us in it, he had never really appreciated any of my art. But only a few minutes after this, it turned out he deleted his retweet of my art piece, saying it was quote-unquote too much despite it being a completely safe work art piece, and then proceeded to retweet these suggestive images a few minutes later. Here are the screenshots which I will provide for evidence. I know that this might not seem like a big deal, and I somewhat agree. This is not nearly as bad as the other things he had done to me and many other people, but it's the fact that he purposely played mind games with me, and completely messed with my emotions that completely messed me up and made me feel extremely depressed and unmotivated. All I wanted was for my own fucking boyfriend to appreciate the effort I put into my work, but he always made up horrible lies saying stuff like it's quote-unquote too much, or just straight up insulted my art, and then retweets stuff like this. I want to make it clear that he did stuff like this to me all the time. He always played mind games with me and made me mentally exhausted and extremely upset, simply because he thought it was funny seeing how much pain I was in. Unfortunately, he deleted the chat, but one of the most ridiculous and childish things he had ever said to me was that he literally told me to kill myself because of my wallpaper. I always screen shared everything I was doing to him to make him feel less lonely during his work breaks, and every time he noticed that my wallpaper was not an art piece of us together, he got extremely angry and verbally abusive. Telling someone to kill themselves over a wallpaper is already horrible and childish enough as it is, especially because there was absolutely nothing wrong with the wallpaper I was using at the time. But saying it to your own partner is absolutely ridiculous and scary. Here are the screenshots which I took for evidence. Another thing which he did is that he always got extremely aggressive and verbally abusive because of certain characters that I like. Whenever I retweeted or commented about a character which I like or made it my profile picture or banner, he always got extremely upset towards me, which is absolutely ridiculous and extremely controlling because he was always extremely open about characters that he was obsessed with, and I never got upset with him at all because it is such a stupid thing to get upset about. This is even more proof that RyudieDragon is an extremely controlling and abusive partner who overreacts when it comes to the smallest things. Here are the screenshots which I took for evidence. Another mind game which he always played with me was that instead of making me feel better whenever I was going through a difficult time, he instead always found ways to make me feel worse. I can't think of a single time RyudieDragon truly cared about my emotions and truly tried to comfort me in our relationship. My mental health and happiness was a complete joke to him. All he cared about was using me to get what he wanted. Probably the most damaging thing which he had ever done to me other than cheating on me was not caring about my grandma's death. He did not try to make me feel better at all. He immediately talked about how his work was not going well. I always did everything I possibly could to cheer him up whenever he was having a bad day at work, such as making art pieces for him, streaming games which he liked, trying to comfort him, and so much more, but he was never there for the most traumatizing moments in my life. I've had multiple breakdowns on call and in DMs with RyudieDragon in the past, but this one was the most serious. His complete lack of care or even emotion towards my situation caused me to have a mental breakdown in our DMs, which I will now share, for evidence of his lack of empathy and disgusting behavior. After being with him for 2 years and talking to his previous partners, it is now clear to me that RyudieDragon does not know how to love. The only time he ever expressed care for me is when he bought me commissions or inflatables. Sure, this was nice, but I was not stupid. It was obviously he was sending stuff to me in hopes that it would be enough for me to stay with him. I told him so many times that emotional love is infinitely more important than physical love, and I even confronted him about it in the screenshots I'm about to share. I would have done anything for him to be there for me emotionally. But RyudieDragon is a selfish human who lacks emotions or empathy, and only cares about himself and his own gain. Everything he has ever done for me was for his own personal gain. This is his biggest form of manipulation, sending art and inflatables as a substitute for emotional love. He made it clear to me on numerous occasions that he does not care about money, so him sending things to me was a meaningless act because there was never any care behind it. Even whenever I was just simply sad and feeling down, he always went out of his way to make me feel as bad as I possibly could. I told him while I was streaming to him in a call that I was upset and sad because of everything going on in my life, and he spammed skull emojis and nonsense instead of trying to make me feel better. I know this is not a big deal, but it's the fact that he did stuff like this every possible chance he got, which made it absolutely disgusting and mentally damaging and abusive. Just like all of his previous partners have stated, he was extremely open and flirted with people in servers and Twitter replies despite knowing that I was not okay with it and that our relationship was closed. He also made really weird and predatory jokes about underage furries quite often. Here are a couple screenshots for evidence. Something that is related to this is the fact that after making this document public, I had someone who wishes to remain anonymous send me messages and screenshots showing how quickly RyudieDragon started to flirt with them, even though they never talked and had just started to interact with each other. Something else that is extremely important and worth mentioning is the fact that I was still in a relationship with Ryu at the time of these screenshots and this interaction taking place, meaning that Ryu has attempted to cheat on me multiple times, which was very upsetting to figure out about, but I am not shocked considering everything else he had done to me. Here are the screenshots for evidence. I know that some people might consider this not a big deal, but it's obvious that RyudieDragon was trying to flirt and start a sexual interaction with this individual despite being in a close relationship with me at the time. This is not only more proof that Ryu is an unloyal and untrustworthy person, but it also shows how quickly he tries to manipulate and pressure victims into doing sexual acts with him. What I'm going to talk about now is very similar to the situation which I just explained, but much worse. After making this document public and sharing it with some people, another person sent me messages and evidence of RyudieDragon attempting to cheat on me for a third time. This individual wishes to remain anonymous, but states that in February 2023, him and Ryu were chatting on Discord and doing innocent hug roleplay stuff before Ryu began making it very lewd and sexual. Soon after they ended the RP session, RyudieDragon asked to trade dick pics and also asked for a video, as well as very highly implying that he wanted to send this individual his own nudes as well. Here are the screenshots for evidence. Even though we completely agreed to keep our relationship closed and RyudieDragon promised that he would not do anything sexual behind my back, he never listened, and throughout our entire relationship he was constantly trying to cheat and manipulate others into doing sexual acts with him behind my back. This is extremely solid proof that even after all these years, RyudieDragon has never changed and still abuses and attempts to cheat on the people he is in relationships with. Another disgusting thing which RyudieDragon has done quite a lot in multiple Discord servers is that he attempts to pressure minors into being gay. He also insults people if they are straight. It is extremely creepy and controlling behavior trying to manipulate and change young people's sexual orientations while being a fully grown adult. Here are some screenshots which were shared with me from an anonymous individual for evidence. Another thing that he did to me which felt like a complete lie and backstab to me was that despite the fact that he told me many times that he hated not safe for work furry art and that it made him uncomfortable, especially when it's of other people's sonas, he ended up paying to see the exact thing he told me he hated. This is especially hurtful because he doesn't even like not safe for work of my own sona which I drew. On top of everything, he subscribed to someone he told me he did not like, and we promised that we would not send not safe for work images in our personal server ever again after a certain incident. So he broke around 3 serious problems in one small swoop and acted like it was not a big deal. Something else that's connected to this that he did is that we promised that we would not use suggestive or not safe for work profile pictures or anything like that. But literally 5 minutes after we agreed to this, he ended up changing his profile picture to this not safe for work piece of art. This might seem like a small deal to the people hearing this, and I understand, but it's the fact that he completely lied to me and messed with my head with this which is the problem. Obviously this would not have been a problem if he had not lied to me and broken our promise. These might seem like small things, but small things matter, and they add up, and RyudieDragon knew this. One of his biggest forms of abuse towards me was doing a huge amount of little things and waiting for me to have a breakdown, and then acting like I was the problem, and that I was overreacting. It's such a horrible and mentally draining form of abuse, and unfortunately, he used this on me all the time, and I'm sure he used it on many of his other victims as well. From my 2 years of being with RyudieDragon, it became clear to me that he is absolutely not fit to be in any relationship whatsoever, not only due to the fact that he is an extremely manipulative and abusive person, but also his complete lack of awareness of what is okay in a relationship and what isn't. At the start of our relationship, we always slept in calls together, and sometimes he would just leave me to sleep in calls with other people, which felt extremely wrong and weird to me at the time. Keep in mind that this specific incident is when our relationship was just beginning and he was already doing stuff like this to me. He would also straight up lie to me about calling with me, and then I would see him calling with other people on random servers all the time. It's not the fact that he called with other people that upset me. It's the fact that he lied to me about it and was so open about his lies, which really hurt me mentally. It made me feel like I was alone and meant nothing to him, which obviously ended up being true. I could write an entire book about all the little things he has done to me, but that would take up way too much time, and these were the main things he did continuously, which really upset me. And I think I've made my point that RyudieDragon was a horrible boyfriend and human being towards me and everyone else. I know that some people might view these last few points as petty and not important, but something that people need to realize is that little things are important and that they add up, especially when you're with an abusive partner. All of these little things which he always did to me might seem of little importance, but these actions chipped away at my happiness and mental health and overall trust with RyudieDragon. Everyone has a bad day where little minor inconveniences add up to the point where even something as little as stubbing your toe or something causes you to get extremely angry and upset. That's what it felt like being with RyudieDragon every single day for the past 2 years that I was with him. I was constantly upset, but I was too scared and trapped to leave him. He treated the little and big things as if they meant nothing, and I was overreacting whenever I cried to him or needed a mental health break to myself. But RyudieDragon knew what he was doing. He knew how much little things hurt me, and that's why he kept on doing them to me. Because he is the most manipulative and abusive person I have ever seen and had to deal with, and I will never recover from the years of abuse and manipulation from him. And I'm sure the victims feel the same exact way. I need to end this off by saying and making it extremely clear that if you are friends with this monster, you are part of the problem. Even if you don't talk to him often, having RyudieDragon on your friends list makes him think that he has people who he can turn to. And that's the last thing an abusive and manipulative pedophile needs. I hope that after hearing this, that anyone who has RyudieDragon added or interacts with him will block him and spread this video. I also need to thank all of the victims who were strong and comfortable enough to open up to me and explain their stories to me. I appreciate it, and I'm terribly sorry for the abuse everyone had to go through. And to those who had negative experiences with RyudieDragon but stayed silent, just know that you are not alone, and my Discord DMs are always open. No more chances, no more forgiveness. Spread the word.